Hello, welcome to Falcons Central Radio Show on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I'm Aaron Freeman, joined by my good friend Scott Karasik.
What's up, guys? Hard Knocks was a bunch of people are saying, "Oh, it was boring. It was boring," and I'm just like, "It's the Falcons. What were you expecting?"
Yeah, we will be talking about Hard Knocks. We just watched the first episode, so you'll get our fresh, hot takes on the first episode of Hard Knocks. We will also be going over the Falcons depth chart, which they released the first depth chart of the preseason today. And then we will be getting to your mailbag questions. So, Scott, Hard Knocks. First, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It's nice to get to know some of these guys through it when you're. I mean, you don't expect to see these guys. How to put this? You don't expect to see these guys like have as much personality as a lot of them do.
Mm-hmm.
Like Matt Ryan's going to be a little boring.
Yeah, a little boring.
Compared to, I mean, he's a boring guy.
Yeah.
You know that, Joe Hawley might be a little bit of a disgruntled guy when you hear about fighting. But, I mean, don't get up in a guy's grill don't get up in a guy's grill during training camp and he's not going to fight with you. I mean, some people are just boring. It happens. Falcons are a boring team. They're a hard-working team. I enjoyed seeing Jake Matthews look good. Like, apparently he's not letting anybody get past him at all during training camp. And I hate to say it, but I'm not shocked. The guy should be starting at left tackle sooner rather than later. But what can you do?
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed it. If people found it boring, then they'll find it boring. I don't know what they expected for the first episode. Maybe they've never seen Hard Knocks before, but that was pretty typical Hard Knocks episode for me. But yeah, I liked it. I thought it was, I thought it was funny. There were certain parts that I was laughing out loud at. I thought, the part where Southwood was doing the impression of Keith Armstrong, I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was.
Did it make you like Desmond Southwood more?
Yeah, it did. He could do a comedy routine, I guess. But I thought it was cool that they did the contrast between William Moore's, house and Devontae Freeman getting that little apartment. And he was like, "Oh, look at this big swimming pool," and Devontae Freeman's like, what, 5'8" or whatever, and so he's like barely fitting in the tub, and he's calling it a big bathtub. It's like, that's a little small guy. And then you see this giant pool with a friggin', 2-story palm tree at William Moore's house, and I thought that was pretty cool.
You're just like, yeah, it happens.
Yeah. But it was a good show. I thought it was interesting, some of the people they highlighted, Bear Pasco. I was like, who is this dude? When the Bear Pasco was like the first guy that they showed in the offseason, and I was like, I don't even know who that is, And so then it was like,
he's the backup tight end.
Yeah. But yeah, Steven Jackson, Tyler Starr, Harry Douglas. It did not make me feel better about Harry Douglas. If Hard Knocks, if HBO or whoever knew what Falcon fans felt about Harry Douglas, I think they probably would have edited the show a little differently. The whole women's deodorant thing, and
Man, there's this guy on Twitter named Aaron Parsons. He runs a site called Draft Macca.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that he was posting was hilarious. He is not exactly a Harry Douglas fan, so let's put it this way, he's not too far away from your views on Harry Douglas and the thought of him wearing women's deodorant probably didn't help.
Yeah, yeah.
But he also posted, "Drink every time you hear toughness" on Hard Knocks tonight. If you did that, you probably would have been loaded.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the theme. Toughness. Getting tougher. I thought it was interesting that they showed a lot of the fighting that went on the first week at camp, and sort of the coaches trying to talk about how fighting your own teammates isn't exactly a sign of toughness. But yeah, and that's one of the things that people have been talking about some recently with some of the fighting that's been going on. So that was pretty cool.
I mean, I guess I can understand why some people would think it was boring because I watched it last year when it was the Bengals, and when the Falcons were on there, I was interested, but when they weren't on there, I was like, yeah, whatever, get this off my TV. So I could see it, but a couple notes that I have. Falcons want to emphasize tough, smart football. That's been kind of the theme of the offseason, I guess I would say.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of different fighting situations. Ryan Schrader versus Jock Smith, who fought everybody under the sun when he was at Tennessee. That's how he's going to make the roster. You had Bierman versus Matthews, and Matthews just looked like he destroyed Bierman every single time they were going up against each other. So I could understand why Bierman would have gotten frustrated and started that fight. Hawley in a couple different fights, not shocking at all. He got in a lot of fights at UNLV, so he's Joe Hawley. He's trying to lead the line at center. Let him do it, and just get him to stop fighting with people.
Good luck with that.
I was a little shocked at the absence of Paul Warlow and Joplo Bartu and that entire linebacker situation from the episode, especially considering just how much linebackers have been featured throughout, like, the Mike Smith era with D-Block, with Sean Weatherspoon, with Curtis Lofton. Linebackers have always been kind of at the forefront. And then with this, not a single linebacker was even on the show. Like, not a single guy from the inside linebacker group was even on the show. Mm-hmm. And Trufant and Alford weren't even on the show. And that was something I thought was going to be really featured because they're pretty much best friends right now. And then
4 more episodes, for some of that stuff to be featured. So.
We do have 4 more episodes. One of my notes here is Corey Bierman needs a new family. Yeah, I'm not gonna change my mind on that one.
Okay.
Dude, Zolchak, she's the Stephanie McMahon of this team.
Okay.
Not a fan. Not a fan at all. Or even better comparison, Vicky Guerrero, if you're a wrestling fan. You'll understand what I mean if you're a wrestling fan.
I got the McMahon reference, not Guerrero one.
Now, Roddy talks a lot of crap, and Julio just sits there and laughs at it the entire time. Mm-hmm. And William Moore's the one who's getting most of it, which is kind of interesting to see. Mike Tice gave my favorite quote of the night. We need to toughen these guys up like they're from New York, Mr. Blank, just like us. Mm-hmm. And that entire time I was thinking, this guy wants to be a mobster. All right. And then my final note here is the rookie check-in. When I went to the Citadel, we had knob check-in, which is the freshmen, like, they come in, they check in, they're like, oh, hey, please don't destroy me, please don't kill me, kind of thing. And it reminded me a lot of that, only it was the nice version. Maybe that's how, like, regular colleges did freshman check-in.
Yeah, that's about right.
But I wouldn't know. It was like, oh, hey, here's your room key. Oh, hey, here's this. Oh, hey, here's this ID badge that you have to wear around your neck. And I'm like, yep, that reminds me of being a knob, except for the whole hazing thing.
Yeah, regular college is a little hazing free. They don't haze you the first day. It's usually about the second week, maybe.
Yeah.
Because the
you got hazed the first day. Pretty much nonstop. Yeah. Until rec day, which was in May. And they couldn't haze us during evening study period, which was from 8 o'clock until lights out.
Okay.
But right after lights out, boom, right in your room. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah, that was a fun episode. Saw a lot of things, but I hate to say it, it was pretty uneventful. It was, hey, here's the check-in, here's the team. Mike Smith doesn't exactly exude confidence this season. He's more like, we got to figure this shit out, which I can understand after last year.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, if he have a losing season, people are talking about him losing his job. So I can understand he's feeling a little bit of the pressure.
I mean, I can understand the pressure, but I don't know. I like Mike Smith. I think he's the right coach. I don't think that him on TV at all,
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't think him on TV at all will ever do him justice.
Yeah, yeah. Some of his interactions with the rookies felt a little awkward to me, but I think that's just Mike Smith. He's not that type of guy. That's one of the reasons why he, took forever for him to be a head coach because he's not that sort of classic outgoing head coach personality. So,
I hate to say it, but he's a manager. He's not really the head coach. Like he manages all the different aspects and he's a good planner, but I'm not seeing like Rex Ryan. There's the head coach.
okay.
Mike Smith, not really.
Interesting. I don't quite agree, but interesting.
I mean, Marvin Lewis was more interesting to watch last year with the Bengals.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, and Marvin Lewis is pretty boring compared to a bunch of guys too. Anyway,
As long as Mike Smith is better than Joe Philbin, I'm okay with it, and I think he was.
I mean, I think he's one of the top 4 or 5 coaches in the league, but
Well, anyway, all right, we can let's talk a little bit about this depth chart, Scott.
it's probably not a bad idea.
So, okay, let's preface this by saying it's a preseason depth chart. It's like maybe 50% accurate. It's basically, on one hand, it's kind of what the depth chart has looked like as they practiced the first week. On the other hand, it's kind of like grandfathered in from, I don't know, the off season or something. So, once the actual preseason game happens on Friday this week, then we'll actually be able to see what the real depth chart is. But
I've always found depth charts to be pretty futile too, because it's more about packaging in today's NFL.
Yeah.
But
So
that being said,
let's talk about that package. I guess the big takeaway from the depth chart is that the Falcons decided, they said, you know what, let's forget the traditional depth chart. Let's just put our nickel sub package up there, and then we'll just do it that way.
that's exactly what happened. They have a nickel sub package with basically saying, hey, we're going to put the most veteran players as the starters. Everybody else is backup. The longest tenured Falcons outside of the free agents we just signed, and then everybody else is a backup. Like Desmond Trufant over Ricardo Allen and Devontae Glover Wright. Like, let's be honest here. That's not a shock.
Yeah.
Or Josh Wilson because he's a Tim Lewis favorite over Robert McClain. Again, not a shock.
Yep.
Dwight Lowery and William Moore starting at center. I mean, none of these are really a huge shock. The only thing I would say that I'm shocked at is that they've got Babineau listed at defensive end and not defensive tackle,
Mm-hmm.
and Massaquoi listed behind him, because it's kind of a weird. It's not a good fit the way the depth chart is showing right now. Like, there's a lot of change that's going to happen throughout the year. The one thing I do agree with on the depth chart is Warlow and Bartu starting.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I hate to say it, who else are you going to start?
Yeah. I think you're right, and I think the interesting thing about it is the Falcons put their nickel, they based it out of their nickel, with 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 3 corners, and 2 safeties. But what they list as their first team is very unlikely to be their, starting nickel defense because, as you mentioned, Massaquoi is listed on the second team. OC's listed on the second team. OC and Massaquoi are going to be on the field in nickel. I can guarantee you that. The only question is which two of those defensive linemen are not going to be on the field. And the best guess is probably, 2 out of the 3 between Bierman, Jackson, and Soliai, with Jackson and Soliai being the 2 likeliest candidates because guess what? They didn't play nickel when they were in Kansas City and Miami, respectively. They came off the field nickel situations. So
I think you'll see a lot of Hageman and Babineau and Bierman and Massaquoi, or OC and Massaquoi on the field.
Yeah. But let's switch a little bit to the offensive side of the ball. Let's talk about the offensive linemen on this depth chart. No real surprises. The starting 5, we knew that. Baker at left tackle, Blaylock at left guard, Hawley at center, Asamo at right guard, Jake Matthews at right tackle. Not a shock. We all knew that. That's going to be the starting 5 unless there's an injury. That's it. They're locked in. I guess where it starts to get a little bit more interesting is when you get to the second and third team. And, I guess, my question is, we knew kind of Holmes was going to be the backup left tackle. We knew Cons was going to be the backup center. It was really the left guard, and right tackle that was sort of the positions that were probably the most fluid, that second team group. And the Falcons have Karimi as the right tackle, Harlan Gunn at right guard, Mike Johnson at left guard.
I have a little. I mean, Johnson played left guard in college, and that's probably his best fit long term. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he's like 27 or 28 years old now. Mm-hmm. When is long term at this point? Cons, I say cut him. Just have Harlan Gunn be the backup center. Because after a certain point, you just got to get rid of Cons. Holmes, I think, should move to the right side. I think Karimi is probably a better backup left tackle. Or Johnson even, better backup left tackle than he is. And I like Ryan Schrader. I'm probably one of the few people that really likes Ryan Schrader as a backup at both left and right tackle. Because I don't think that anybody else compares.
I agree. I like Schrader's upside. I really do. I really do think he's got potential to be, potentially that guy opposite Jake Matthews. Whether that's next year or maybe even this year, I don't know, but I think he has the potential to be that guy.
I mean, he really does.
So is it a little shock to you that he was the third string right tackle on the initial depth chart, or do you not care that much?
This is where things get a little different, because last year the Falcons had Paul Warlow as the third string middle linebacker. We all know how that turned out. Mm-hmm. He played second string reps. He looked like a potential starter at middle linebacker. And then throughout the year, eventually wound up starting at middle linebacker. So I think you're going to see a similar situation with Ryan Schrader, except for the fact that I don't think he's going to start. Mm-hmm. Unless Sam Baker goes down, I don't see any way Ryan Schrader starts. Unless Baker, Karimi, and Mike Johnson all go down, I don't see any way he starts at right tackle. And Lamar Holmes would have to go down. There's 5 guys that have to go down for him to start at right tackle.
No, Karimi's already down, so.
All right, so you can cross him off the list. All right.
Yeah. That's 1. Okay, he's got 4 more to go.
No, I do think Karimi ends up making the roster though. Mm-hmm. Even if they end up putting him on the PUP list or any sort of injury type deal, I think he'll end up making the roster. Mike Johnson might be the one that's on the hot seat. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is actual talent at backup line right now. And the starters, if they stay healthy, could end up being one of the better lines in the NFL.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I like them. I think they're going to do a good job. I'm more worried about the tight end situation than anything else at this point.
Well, you wouldn't be the only person on that list that's worried about the tight ends.
I mean, I like Levine Toilolo as a blocker, at least right now. The worst thing that can happen is he's Ben Hartsock.
Okay. That's probably fair.
And he's a good blocking tight end. Or the worst thing that can happen is he's Bear Pasco. He's a good blocking tight end for his entire career. He's gonna be on a roster, and that's more than worth the late 4th-round pick where you got him. He stays on your roster for 5-6 years. He's a solid contributor, but he's never a star. Best case scenario, he's probably a 40 catch, 500 yard, 8-9 touchdown kind of guy because all of them are in the red zone. All of his catches are in the red zone this year kind of guy. That's a best case scenario. I hope for the best case scenario for Toilolo's sake and for the team's sake because they could use a solid, I'd say he's more Algie Crumpler than your standard, than Tony Gonzalez out there. He's a way better blocker than Tony ever was. But he's more of that inline guy than that move. More of that inline, stuck at the end kind of guy than that move. Play him here, play him here, play him here. He's in the slot. He's in here. He's in there kind of tight end. And then with Julio and Roddy opening things up because their ability to go deep, it makes things unique.
Mm-hmm. Did you see anything at the wide receiver position that caught your eye on the depth chart?
Well, the top 4 are pretty, that's kind of obvious the way they're set up. Roddy with Julio with Harry behind him because that's more the possession side of things, and then Julio with Hester behind him because that's more the speed kind of side of things. That makes sense. Drew Davis, Courtney Roby in the 3rd string. I mean, the wide receivers, they kind of had to go very straightforward. I do like that they have Boldevine and Martino and Ebert and all those guys just kind of listed in 2 different groups because it's kind of split speed versus possession.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but other than that, I don't really see, unless Boldevine impresses and beats out Roby or Bernard Reedy earns a spot and can somehow take Drew Davis's spot for a couple of weeks until Davis gets off the PUP list, I don't see any way that he makes a roster. I think it's going to be Davis and Roby in those last 2 spots, unless someone just balls out and looks like a monster in camp, or in the preseason. I mean, and I think if anybody's going to be it's going to be Speedy Reedy because he was just dominating people in practices.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it a little bit further. I don't think Davis is gonna make it. I think Reedy's played well enough that with Davis probably gonna miss at least another week of time. That especially if Reedy goes out and plays very well against Miami, I think Davis is gonna be by an 8 ball because basically everything that what Drew Davis brings to the table is he's a good blocker and he can play special teams. Now, I can't really speak to Courtney Roby's blocking ability, but I know Courtney Roby can play special teams. He was the captain of a team that shall go nameless that plays in the state of Louisiana. And so to me, it just there's no real reason, at least in my mind, to keep both of those guys on the roster when they basically are the same guy. And I think with Reedy, you cut him, he's not clearing waivers. Based off of the way he's played so far this offseason, he's not going to clear waivers. Someone's going to pick him up. And so I think Davis, if Davis basically needs to get back healthy sooner rather than later, or otherwise I think he's going to find himself out of a job.
It's probably fair, but the question is whether it's Davis or whether it's Roby that Reedy has to beat. Because if Davis is healthy, I think he keeps the job. I mean, you put 3 years worth of 2 years worth of investment into a guy. You like him. He's a great special teams guy. He's an asset on the field. It's tough to be like, no, this guy is awful. I mean, he's a starter as a gunner, kind of like Antone Smith. You're going to keep Antone Smith on the roster. I mean, it's not even a question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the quarterback, running back situation. They've got it listed: Ryan, Yates, Renfree, Matthews. That seems pretty straightforward, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really just a question of whether they would make Yates have to earn the number 2 job as opposed to just giving it to him. And it seems like they're probably just going to give it to him. At least the reps. I'm not saying that he's automatically earned a job, but I'm saying he'll get the second team reps.
It's either him or Renfree.
Yeah.
I don't think Matthews is even going to make the roster. And then Steven Jackson's listed as the starter, but he's obviously injured.
Mm-hmm.
Jacquizz Rodgers is listed as the main backup with Antone Smith in the third string instead of Devontae Freeman. But when you watched Hard Knocks, everything kind of pointed to Devontae Freeman as that guy they're getting ready.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't see a guy take that many reps, have that much focus, and then you wind up getting you don't see a guy get that many reps and then wind up being listed as fourth string. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, if the season started today, Quiz would start. Assuming Jackson is injured. That's obviously if Jackson's healthy, he's going to start. But I think, this is basically until Steven Jackson comes back, hopefully week 1, knocking on wood. I think this is going to be these next 4 weeks till the regular season opener is really about let's see how much we can get Freeman up to speed, because Quiz has been here for 3 years. You know what you have in Quiz. This is his 4th year. He's pretty much locked in on what we know he can do. And so if the Falcons have to start him, I don't think that would obviously be an ideal situation, but they obviously know how to use Quiz because they've used him for 3 years and they know how to situate him. It's really about how much can Freeman learn? How much can Freeman be used? And that's basically what this preseason, at least as far as the running backs list goes, is going to be about. Let's throw as much as we can at Freeman. Let's see what sticks. And, and then based off of how he handles that will determine how much he is used in the regular season, a lot or a little.
Agreed. And I think he's going to end up working out quite a bit. Now, another spot is fullback, where I thought Patrick DeMarco's job might have been in trouble, but since they released a guy who I thought was going to potentially take it,
we both did.
I don't think Higgins is very good at all.
Yeah, well,
no, not at all.
Nothing else I can add to it's a fullback. Who cares? No offense. Until Ovi Mahaley, is reborn and returns to the Falcons, I'm not going to care about who the fullback is.
I mean, DeMarco's solid, and I don't see a lot of fullback sets happening. I think a three wide receiver set's going to be the main one.
Yeah.
I think it's more important for a special team spot on the roster.
I agree. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we go 3 wide receiver like 75% of the time.
Yeah, at least 3. Or 2 tight end instead of a fullback most of the time.
Yeah.
Now, Devin Hester, obviously, switching gears to special team. Bryant, Bosher, they're guaranteed their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Safe to say. Sergio Castillo might be the one guy that they stash on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm. They've done it before.
Josh Harris, Matt Bosher, long snapper and holder, same situation. The only real difference is with Devin Hester on the roster, they've got him at punt returner and kick returner. And last year's starters at those spots are now the backups. When you look at a lot of the depth on the depth chart, you kind of go through it and you're like, all right, well, Harry Douglas was a starter last year, now he's a second string. Lamar Holmes was the starter last year, now he's second string. Peter Collins was the starter last year, now he's second string. Harlan Gunn started a lot last year, now he's second string. You're like, Jacquizz Rodgers started a lot last year, now he's second string. you kind of go through the second string, and you're like, man, Osi Umanioria. They've got Corey Peters listed there. They've got Javier Arenas, Robert McLean. They got a lot of guys listed at second string. And then one thing I did notice, and I know you're probably not going to like it too much, but Kamal Ishmael is beating out Zeke Mata.
I would hope so, since Zeke Mata isn't playing. So
I just don't think Zeke Mata's better.
I don't have an argument. I mean, I wish I could disagree with you, but they're about the same to me.
Well, I think Ishmael's got better physical, better speed. I also think that the only way that our friend Bobby Mack ends up starting this year is if there's injuries and he ends up winning a job at free safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that with all the respect in the world to Bobby Mack. Great guy. We've had him on the show a couple times. He's a little smaller than your average safety, but if you compare him physically to some of these guys, he does have amazing speed for a safety. And his size at 5'9", 195 solid.
Mm-hmm. I think we got some more time. I mean, I don't know how this nickel cornerback. It does seem like Josh Wilson has taken most of the first team reps this first week or two, and McLean's got mixed in a little bit more. And I would imagine, it wouldn't surprise me if this first preseason game Wilson is the nickel corner starting, the second one McLean is, and then by that third one, that's when we'll know who has officially won the job. And, the third preseason game is the one where the starters play the majority of the game, and that's really when all the competitions, for the most part, for at least starting positions, are over. So, I think there's still a little bit of more time for McLean to assert himself.
I think after a certain point, the Falcons are just going to end up saying, you know what, let's just have all these competitions and let's have every single one of them last the entire, even go into the season. Some of them are going to go into the season. Starting nickelback, I think, is one of those that's going to go well into the season. Starting free safety, well into the season.
Okay. They are the two positions on defense that are really up. I guess Bartu, I guess, is getting some heat from Shimbo at linebacker.
I think that'll be a rotation until Weatherspoon comes back and shows he's healthy. And if he never comes back and shows he's healthy, you'll just have a rotation with those guys their entire careers, which could be a good situation. Keeping guys fresh and athletic next to Warlow might be a good fit. Having two guys split a lot of snaps might be the best option. It worked for the Bengals for a long time when they had who are those two linebackers? One guy's name was Johnson. One guy's name was it was weird. It was like Rocky Gainer or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that. I can remember.
I watch a lot of other teams, not just the Falcons, and it makes it tough because you're like, man, this guy's good. All right, let me see if I can find it. Ahmad Brooks, Dan Howell, Rashad Gianti.
Who?
Rashad Gianti.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I do have a encyclopedic knowledge of Bengals linebackers. It just, got to be a little bit more specific.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of forgot about him, what his name was. I just knew that he was in a rotation. He looked good. They had this guy, it was Kyrell Johnson, who looked solid, or something Johnson that looked solid, and they rotated 2010, 2011 most of the year. And you were just like, these guys are good. These guys look good. Maybe the Falcons can run something like that with Shembo and, our good friend Joplo.
Mm-hmm.
And see how they work.
Yeah. We shall see. that's pretty much the answer to everything. We shall see. Because as we saw in Hard Knocks, it's about making plays on the field. So these guys will get opportunities, and it's about can they make the plays. But Scott, any more thoughts on the depth chart, or you want to get into these mailbag questions?
Now let's go ahead and get in the mailbag questions.
All right, we got a couple of good ones. Some regulars sent us some stuff. We got a couple of, I think, people that haven't sent us anything yet, so that'll be fun. From our good friend Ben Graysbook, a.k.a. Grazy Bizzle on Twitter, blogger for Blogging Dirty. He asks, how much, if any, do you think True will trail opposing number one wide receivers this year? So basically he's asking, do you think, how much of a shadow corner is Trufant going to be this year?
Ooh, that's tough. Based on Mike Nolan and what he likes to do, probably not as much as you'd want him to be. Nolan's big on you play one side, you play the other side, but he could change it up this year and have Trufant follow him. It really depends on how comfortable he is in Trufant and his abilities. I like Trufant. I think he can handle it, but I don't know. If I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say probably 45, 50% he's going to follow the number one. And there's going to be a lot of zone coverage.
I think it would be a small percentage. I probably won't go as high as you. I think what'll basically be happening, it'll be based off the matchup they have. Like, I think what you're seeing now with the Falcons is they're predominantly playing guys on one side of the field, and that's basically you stay on your side of the field. But I think what they're doing is they're mixing up, and flipping guys so that if they need to have a guy shadow somebody, in some hypothetical universe, let's say we're playing the Bears, and Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall are lining up on either side of the field. And let's say Brandon Marshall's going up against Robert Alford, and Brandon Marshall's, killing Robert Alford for like the first quarter. And so the Falcons are like, okay, maybe we should have Trufant shadow Marshall. And then that means Alford will shadow Jeffrey. And maybe he'll do a little bit better against Jeffrey than he did against Marshall in the first quarter. And so I think it's really more about if they feel like they have the right matchup, they might do it. But I think for the most part, they'll just stick with what they've done the last 6 years, which is you're the left corner, you're the right corner, and that's it.
That's basically my thought. The only other situation I can see that working is, say that you got a situation where it's like Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate. Golden Tate's fast, like ridiculously fast. Calvin Johnson at this point is more physical than fast. Again, don't get me wrong, he's still ridiculously fast, but he's still more physical than he is fast.
Yeah,
So you get Golden Tate, you get Calvin Johnson. That's going to be a matchup that they face this year. You have Trufant on Calvin. You have Alford on Tate. And, or it could just be Trufant's a better cornerback than Alford is. And Tate's a better, Tate's a speed guy and Alford's a speed guy. So you put the speed guy on the speed guy. You put the best corner on the best receiver. And then, in the slot, you just pray. Hope that they don't have anybody good enough to really attack you in the slot, and then hope you get some good pressure. And I think going against a better offensive line will help with the pressure. As crazy as it might sound, maybe playing against Sam Baker and Jake Matthews instead of Lamar Holmes and Jeremy Trueblood every practice is going to help the pass rush.
Shouldn't hurt, I can tell you that much. Yeah.
I mean, if you're getting stonewalled by Jake Matthews all day, and then Jake Matthews ends up stonewalling, everybody and his brother this year, and allowing, say 1 sack as a rookie, which would be a great season for a rookie, 1 sack and like 3 hits as a rookie, that'd be great. That's what you want. You don't want a guy to allow more than that.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right.
So we got a little sidetracked on that one, but those are my thoughts.
Uh, let's go to the next one. Mike McIntosh. I can't even talk. Michael McIntosh asks, "What were your thoughts from yesterday's scrimmage?" And for the listeners that have been living under a rock for the last 24 hours, that is, he's referring to the Falcons' padded scrimmage practice combined, whatever the official verbiage is for it, with the Tennessee Titans from yesterday.
Um, I wasn't there. I was at work. So it's kind of like, hey, I don't really know how to go about this, but there were a lot of fights. I'm okay with fights. Apparently, the Falcons' offensive line shut down the Titans' defensive line. Apparently, the Titans' offensive line shut down the Falcons' defensive line. But Falcons look better than they have in a long time. Apparently, they're a lot bigger, a lot stronger up front, and that's what they needed to be. So I think it's good. I think it's going to be helpful. I think fighting with people isn't really a bad thing. Obviously, you don't want to have a stupid fight like Joe Hawley had getting kicked out of practice, but whatever. And then if you're asking about the Bernard Pollard thing, Bernard Pollard likes to spout off about everything. So let him continue to spout off, and then it is what it is.
Well, yeah, we have a slightly different opinion on fighting. I'm not against, like, I don't really care, but there's a point where the fighting gets a little bit too much, and it's just like, okay, now you're getting to a point where it's like it's getting a little ridiculous, and hopefully it's been nipped in the bud, because we continue to go every other day, and there's another fight, we're gonna start to approach that ridiculous point for me. But yeah, like you, Scott, I wasn't at the scrimmage, only based off of what I heard. Um, Last year we had the first scrimmage with the Bengals, and they dominated us in the trenches. That wasn't the case with the Titans. Both teams, there were moments where both teams got the better of each other, and so and that's not something to hang your head low on, because Titans really do have a really good offensive line. You could probably take their top 6 offensive linemen and put them, at least talent-wise, put them up against pretty much any team's best 6 offensive linemen. So the fact that they may have gotten the better of our defensive line is not necessarily concerning to me. But and they have an underrated defensive line too. Derek Morgan and Jarrell Casey are 2 Pro Bowl caliber players. So, if the Falcons can win against those caliber players, then that's a good sign for our offensive line. So,
The fact that I heard that Sam Baker looked very mobile against guys like Kamarion Wembley and the speed that they have is very, very good news. Against Sean Phillips, Kamarion Wembley, Akeem Ayers, that's helpful because those guys are fast on the edge, and Horton loves to mess with those guys and have them go basically as hard on the edge as they can. So I do like that they can handle the speed, and if Baker's healthy and can handle that kind of speed, he should be fine. And if Baker's fine, this entire defense this entire offensive line is gonna look great this year, because the rest of the line is gonna look very good.
all right. Third one, Devontae Hughes, our good friend Devontae Hughes. Pretty much asks a question pretty much every week. He asks, we pretty much answered Devontae's question. His question was, your opinion on the first depth chart in the 4-2-5 assumed base. I think we.
Well, I'll get into.
Go right ahead.
I will definitely get into my thoughts on this because I didn't push in as much as I could have on this.
Okay.
4-2-5 probably won't even be the base. The way they've got a line on there, it sounds a lot more like it's going to be a 3-3-5. Babineau and Tyson Jackson on the edge, Soliai in the middle. You're going to have Corey Bierman as the strong side linebacker, Warlow in the middle, Bartu on the weak side. You're going to have 5 defensive backs, and it's going to be a fun defense to watch. Bierman will probably blitz in a lot. You know, you're probably going to see a lot more John Massaquoi out there instead of, like when they do go to 4 alignment, you're probably going to see more John Massaquoi instead of John Babineau. Babineau will probably see 50% of the snaps. That starting defensive line I've been talking about, Babineau, Soliai, and Jackson, that they will probably only see 50% of the snaps total maximum. And that's what you want. You want to have a deep, heavy rotation along the defensive line. You want to have guys fresh and attacking the entire damn day. Because otherwise, your defensive line is going to be weak. It's all about packaging in today's NFL. So you want to make sure you've got package A is, these 3 guys. Package B is, say, Rashid Hageman and Corey Peters and Travian Robertson, and they look good. And then package C is, say, Cliff Matthews and if anybody else really makes the roster kind of thing. But there's not going to be a lot of guys making the roster. So I don't really see I don't see 4-2-5 as the base, if you will. I just see it as, hey, this is how we're throwing this up here. Because we don't want to give you any thoughts on how all of our different packages look. Our base defense isn't really a base defense. Our base defense is this.
Mm-hmm.
We run out of the nickel most of the time, so we're just going to show you that.
It's interesting. Because, the interesting thing about it is Bierman, basically. Because Bierman basically can drop down, put his hand in dirt, play defensive end. He's proven that for, 5 years that he can do that. And then last year, before he got injured, he was standing up as a full-time linebacker. And so what you have with that guy is basically you have some flexibility. Sometimes it'll look like a 3-3-5, sometimes it'll look like a 4-2-5, with those guys. And he just kind of that, be that Joker guy again where he'll line up over here, he'll line up over there, and, just throw up some different looks for offenses to have to deal with.
Pretty much. I mean, it's tough to be like, hey, this is the depth chart. This is how it's really going to be when, you got 4 different depth charts being shown out there.
Yeah.
The one at Our Lads for the longest time was a 3-4, and then I don't see 4-2-5 being the long-term starters. I'll put it that way.
Okay. All right. Last question from our friend Rise Up Reader. He asks, what can we expect from Malachi Goodman this year?
Oh,
he seems to be developing nicely.
That's my boy. I'm a big Malachi Goodman fan. I'm a big proponent of his, and I thought he went probably 2 rounds later than he could have. He was a mid-second round grade for me, and he just 6'4", 276, 36-inch arms, really quick off the ball. You put him on, a good team in the SEC, and he gets the same kind of stats, he probably goes in the mid-first. He's just a very athletic, strong player, very intelligent guy, knows what he's doing, and you see it out there on the field. It has long arms, has a large amount of strength. If he ends up starting after a couple of games this year and ends up, starting at the left end over, say, Jonathan Babineau, I know Aaron won't be happy about it, but I would be, because it would be the right move. if you have Babineau come in on pass rushing sub packages, playing 40% of the snaps. The Falcons have basically 8 guys on the defensive line that would fit very well.
Yeah. Scott, I'm actually going to surprise you. I like that plan. Babineau basically played way too many snaps. He played like 980 something snaps last year, which was like the 4th most of any defensive tackle in the league, and he was 32 years old. And basically, because the Falcons didn't have a deep rotation, and basically, outside their edge rushers like Osi and Massaquoi, they basically had 4 guys: Jerry, Babineau, Peters, and Goodman playing reps. And Goodman really wasn't playing a whole lot until the season went awry, and then in the second half they started playing him a lot more. And so basically, Babineau had to play like every snap. I think he ended up playing like 87% of defensive snaps last year. And so, to me, one of the big things with Goodman, and one of the reasons why, I look at the depth chart and I like the fact that he's lined up, he's positioned behind Babineau at the Babineau's position, is because ideally you want to get Babineau in a situation where he's just coming in on pass downs. And that's all he's going to do. He's in the same situation as Osi is this year, which is basically a DPR, designated pass rusher. And the best way of doing that, in my mind, is to have Goodman play the rundowns. And one of the things that Goodman stood out at last year was playing against the run. And so I think it meshes perfectly that if, Babineau, is the guy, but he may not be starting. And so if Goodman winds up starting by, I don't know, week 5 or something like that, I think that's a positive thing. And even though, people, there'll be some people out there trying to say, oh, Jonathan Babineau's lost a step. Like, no, this is all part of the plan. The fact that he's not starting Babineau in this case means that he should be able to gain a step because he'll be a lot fresher for pass downs.
I mean, yeah. I'm having a tough time disagreeing.
Yeah, we agree once a show, and this is our big agreement.
I mean, yeah. Jonathan Babineau, pass rusher, Malachi Goodman, run stuffer, have a 3-man, if you do go to a 3-man nickel rotation, like a 3-man nickel pass rushing line, and have it as Rashid Hageman and Babineau and trying to think of the third guy. There's really not a third guy, and it drives me crazy. Because Travian Robinson's going to make the roster, but you're just like, this guy's not a starter on a nickel or a pass rusher in a nickel.
Peters can be that guy when he's healthy.
Yeah, you could have Peters, but you got to have a healthy Peters.
Yeah.
It drives you crazy. So, yeah, Peters is that third guy if healthy in a 3-tech, and Massaquoi, linebacker, and you could just have a lot of fun with this defensive line.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's nice to have an actual rotation this year. We're going to have, 6 or 7 guys, not counting the edge rushers, just rotating in the middle. And I think you'll see with Goodman in particular, I think you'll probably see at least twice as many snaps. I think he wound up with like 300 last season. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's at 500 or 600. It actually wouldn't shock me if Goodman gets more snaps than Soliai does this year.
I would kind of hope Goodman sees more snaps than Soliai, just because Soliai saw way too many last year for a poor team, a poor team defense. Just looking here, Massaquoi should probably see an increase in snaps, where Babineau, honestly, there's 5 guys who I think are going to see a lot of snaps, see about 1,000 snaps this year, and it's Warlow, it's Desmond Trufant, it's Robert Alford, it's William Moore, and then it's whoever winds up winning the free safety battle if they can hold on to it. Whether it's Desmond Southward, whether it's Robert McClain, whether it's Kamalni Ishmael, any of them.
You're already going to throw Lowry out?
Lowry has yet another concussion.
Okay.
I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so, man. if he doesn't keep... I mean this with all due respect to Dwight Lowery. If you can't get on the field, why were you signed in the first place?
Okay.
I mean, I understand giving it one more shot, but at this point, he needs to think more about his health than anything else. And getting a third concussion is probably not good. I mean, you got guys who have... They're retiring after their second concussion. Some guys are retiring after their first concussion. Like David Wilson. Granted, he has a neck injury too, but it's just tough to see.
Okay. Just to throw in on your last point, though, with guys who might see a lot of snaps, I think Bierman might also be on that list just because Nolan likes to move him around and play him in certain situations.
Maybe.
Okay. Maybe. All right. But any last thoughts? This used to be the point, Scott, where we would let you go on your little 3-minute rant about something, but you've mellowed out a little bit over the last 6 months of the show.
Because there's not been much to rant about.
Yeah.
When the team is sucking and you've got a new thing that you're noticing every week, you're like, man, this is pissing me off. But now I'm like, the team looks good. I'm kind of happy. Like, the offensive line looks like they're tough. Yes, take a shot. The defensive line looks like it's physical. Another synonym for tough. Take another shot. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of potential with this team, and I think the team reminds me more of 2008 or 2010 or 2012. It's that even year Falcons team.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every other year, they seem like they're ready to go and ready to just win a lot of games. And then every odd year, it's like, oh, hey, we added this one guy who we didn't have last year who's going to make us get over the hump that we couldn't get over last year. No, you got to realize you got to earn it every single year. And I think last year was that kick in the ass the Falcons needed of, hey, this is what you need.
Mm-hmm.
You need everybody to always be hustling, to always bust their ass and want to win.
Exactly. Well, that's the story of the season, and I guess that's the story of our show. Let's wrap this up. And you can always find us on Twitter. We're the tweeters. I'm at FalcFans. Scott is at Scott Karasik. You can hit up the show at Falcons PFC. We both respond to tweets from the show. And, check out ProFootballCentral.com. And we'll be back next Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess we'll just keep doing it at 11 as opposed to 10.
Do Hard Knocks. There's only 4 more episodes.
Yeah. So, August will be an hour later than normal. So September we'll get back to normal.
And you can always watch it archived if you don't feel like staying up till midnight. You got work the next morning. Watch us on your lunch break.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube.
Don't get fired, though.
That's why I said lunch break, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Well, some people got half-hour lunch breaks, so I don't know. We may have to start doing shorter shows.
What evil corporation only gives half-hour lunch breaks? That's politics. No politics on the show. Never mind.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're all going to be signing off. See you next week.